Now, as Tony Blair's former Chief Press Secretary and Director of Communications and Strategy, Alastair Campbell was one of the key figures in a seminal time in British politics. He's now released the 5th volume of his diaries, this one dealing directly with Blair's decision to join George W. Bush in his war in Iraq. I caught up with Alastair, and before getting his opinions on Donald Trump and Brexit, I asked him about why he chose to write his books in diary form.
I remember during the Good Friday Agreement period, I mean, this volume's beyond that, this is 03 to 05, but during that period, there came a point, maybe 2 days in, and I don't know why, but people just started to think something's happening here. I don't know quite why or how, but it's all shifting, and the plates are moving, and something might be happening. And I literally was just going, 11:05, 11:16, and that's quite good to have, it's like... I do think there's, without being sort of pompous about it, I think that lots of people write political memoirs. Bruce Grocott is a friend of mine, and he said most political memoirs, when you boil it down, the title is How I Was Right All Along. And it's true, that's how most people write their memoirs, they justify. Whereas a diary, it's not justifying anything, it's just saying what happened, what you thought. Yeah.
Two questions for you around Iraq. One, do you regret that it has dominated the Blair's legacy? And one, in hindsight, are you still happy that the right decision was made to go to war in Iraq?
On the second point, there's a bit. This is the other reason why it's good to have these diaries to look back on. There's a bit where I think it's Tony and Jonathan Powell and I are talking about that very question. And Tony has always been, and even with me in private, I've never seen him be anything other than really passionately believe that he did the right thing, and what's more, given what else is happening in the Middle East now, that he'll stand by that. I, at one point in this volume, say that I sometimes worry that we did the right thing in the wrong way, if you see what I mean. That we were... The Americans did have an agenda, and part of that agenda was, if you like, exploiting the relationship. But that being said, Tony was not doing it because the Americans wanted it. Tony Blair was as strong as he was in relation to Iraq because he passionately believed it was the right thing to do. Now, I think you wouldn't be human, given all that has followed, given the other part of your question about the way that it's impacted upon people's perception of him in particular, if you didn't at least think about whether there were different routes that could have been taken. But if I look back, I still do support him in the decision that he took. Yeah. Just on the point about legacy, it's no point regretting it. It saddens me that I think Tony is a really good guy. I think he was a terrific Prime Minister. I think you look at the quality of leadership around the world at the moment, and I just think Tony was in a pretty high league, and there aren't many of his ilk around. And I think that what's happened is that I understand why Iraq was unpopular. I understand why people see what's happened in Iraq since and think, I understand why they say, was it worth it? But at the same time, I look at Tony's premiership across the piece. I look at the way that we turned a losing Labour Party into a winning party. I look at what's happening to the Labour Party now. I look at the peace process in Northern Ireland, and I could go on and on and on and on. Yeah. So there's a lot to it. And I don't believe that people love to say history will decide. History goes on when you're a big figure like Tony Blair, it goes on forever.
Looking at the effect of Brexit on Ireland and on the Northern Ireland peace process, I mean, using your strategic mind, what can you see as a way around particularly the border issue in Northern Ireland?
Well, I'm in a bit of a minority on this whole Brexit question. I worry. I mean, yes, there's been a referendum and you respect the result and you respect the outcome. But I do worry the extent to which, almost right across the political class, Brexit means Brexit has been interpreted as a government and a new Prime Minister who's not been elected by a single vote by anybody, not even the MPs, sort of there by acclamation on the back of somebody else's strategic failure, that somehow it means that whatever they now decide Brexit means, we go along with that. So I think there's a prior question, and that is there more that can be done to protect the United Kingdom? And this affects you because it will damage Ireland as well, actually to stop this happening.
Do you think that's possible?
I think it's very, very difficult, but I don't think we should. I don't think we should just sort of wave goodbye to it. If the MPs, and a lot of this debate was about parliamentary sovereignty, if our MPs genuinely reach a view, as I think a lot of them will, that there is no way this is going to be anything other than hugely damaging to Britain's national interest, politically, economically, diplomatically, socially, culturally, then they've got a duty to say so. And if that means at some point that the terms of exit have to be put to a referendum, now the only problem we've got with that is the rest of the European Union might be thinking, well, tough, too late. You've done your Article 50, off you go.
Well, the button hasn't been pushed just yet, so we haven't marked.
There's a little bit of time, there's not much.
The issue of leaders and leaders who are kind of a right-wing nature, thinking of the likes of Marine Le Pen, and then we're seeing Trump in the States and how he emerged from nowhere. What's your analysis of that? Is it to do with a huge body of people feeling that they're no longer being represented?
I think it's more complicated than that. I think it's partly that. I think it's partly about globalisation and the crash. I think it's a lot of people feeling that the crash came along, it happened, it damaged me, my house, my job, my community, people saying that all around the world, but the people who caused it, they're carrying on just fine. And I think what I find incredible about Brexit, about Le Pen, about Trump, is the extent to which very right-wing, elitist forces manage to portray themselves as anti-elitist on the side of the people. Trump is on camera saying something, and when he's asked why he said it, it's not to explain it, he says, I didn't say that.
Can he win?
I think it's very hard, but I just think we're in crazy times.
You'd be surprised if he won.
I'd be surprised if I won. I think Hillary's done well in the debates. I think she's actually fought a pretty good campaign. Hillary figures in and out of the diaries the whole way through. I've never understood why people don't like her, but a lot of people don't. It's really interesting. When Brexit was on, when the referendum was on, everywhere you went in the world, it was virtually impossible to find anybody who thought that leaving the European Union was a good idea. At the moment, anywhere you go in the world, apart from America, it's impossible to find anybody who thinks Trump will be anything other than a disaster. So why are there so many people in America who don't think that? Answer, because they're the ones who got the chance to kick the system in the slats. And that's what people are enjoying doing. And I think for a lot of them, they're not thinking much beyond that.
Would appear not. Now, Outside Inside 2003 to 2005, Volume 5 of the Alastair Campbell Diaries is in all good bookshops now.